I just want to just to know. Oh, you're right. Then I have myself.
Well, everybody, what do you think? How are you doing? Turn the mic off. Okay, good. Well. Well, does anybody want to start Bible study? We got a smaller crowd, but we're streaming. Might as well. I think the fact that there's often a pancake breakfast just has people in the mindset that you wouldn't have Bible study on Easter Sunday morning, and that's understandable. You know, I get it, as they say. On the other hand, it seems like a weird way to celebrate Easter is saying we'll skip Bible study. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see Jesus pointed them to the scriptures. A lot of what? Right. I think a lot of people probably did assume. So I feel a little bad that they're going to maybe miss the Bible study. But yeah, you know what? We got it recorded. They can always go watch it. But we could always do what topic? On the flood? On the fly. Well, we could. Is there any burning question or issue anyone had on their mind that you'd like to study? I don't really have anything. What's interesting to me won't always be interesting to everybody else.
Well, if you watched Newsmax last night, they were going through the Exodus again.
Oh, yeah. The same show that you'd mentioned before?
Yeah.
This must be their... Oh, yeah, right. It is Easter weekend, so they usually have a lot of Bible-themed stuff on TV. As I recall, we don't really have regular TV anymore, but... So they got something on the Exodus? Anything else? Anybody seen?
Not seen. There was a question this morning. Shunammite. Is that a people?
Are Shunammite named after a person or a place?
That's something I'd have to look up. I don't remember. The Shunammite woman, right?
No, there was the Shunammite virgin, and then there was the Shunammite awful or a Shunammite man.
Yeah.
Are they named after a Shunammite or a place called Shunammite?
Probably a place if that's their name, but I don't know. We'd have to look that up. I can't, yeah, I wish I could help there, but I can't. I don't even have my study Bible here. Yes?
Question that we had after Good Friday says, is it Eloi?
Okay, so how do you say that? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. That's basically how I say it. That's actually a really interesting phrase. Well, in Aramaic, the way we pronounce Aramaic today, we would just say Eli, Eli. So that O vowel is kind of a mystery as to why it's in there. But remember, the Gospels are written in Greek, and so it's a Greek person's approximation of what the Aramaic sounds like. And for some reason, they included that O vowel. So it should just be Eli, Eli. So there is a word Eloah, and so it could be Eloi, I guess. In that case, it would be Elohi, Elohi. Yeah, like Elohim. So it doesn't really matter because it's not precise to begin with. The what? Well, they included it, so, we don't know exactly what the language sounded like when they spoke it. There was no one recording, and language pronunciation changes over time. And they may have spoken a strange dialect of Aramaic. So maybe that's exactly how it sounded, but it's not the classical standard.
The other question
Yeah.
was, when did the Jews drop Hebrew and go to Aramaic?
When did the Jews drop Hebrew and go to Aramaic? Good technical question. That began when they went to Babylon for exile. And that is when they adopted Aramaic as a secondary language. And then slowly over time, it took over as a first language for those living in Babylon. And we forget that there were many Jews living in Babylon until the Muslim period. And in fact, the Talmud, there's two Talmuds, and the authoritative one for Jews today is the Babylonian Talmud, which was compiled completely in Babylon. Yeah. Any other random questions? Well, I know one thing we could look at that's because we cut it out of our service today, but it's maybe the most appropriate or common psalm for Holy Week and Easter. Anyone know what psalm that is? Yeah, well, because we were working on the bulletin together. But yes, Psalm 118. Why don't we look at that? We can, and that'll, plus we should probably end a little early anyway, since we're starting late and ending early. This will be shorter, but it's thematic. It goes with Easter. And so those who just didn't realize we have study won't miss out on anything. So a little different, Psalm 118, often called the Easter Psalm. Well, not that often, but it is sort of the Easter Psalm. And we'll see why as we get through to the end of it. Let's look at, everybody there? Psalm 118, verses 1 through 7. And I didn't pass out this microphone. Would anyone like to begin? Lance, thank you.
Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let Israel say, his love endures forever. Let the house of Aaron say, his love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say, his love endures forever. In my anguish I cried to the Lord, and he answered by setting me free. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? The Lord is with me. He is my helper. I will look in triumph on my enemies.
Okay, thank you. So already we see this is a interesting psalm because it's a mix of different psalm genres, we could say. It's got a very triumphant first four lines there. When you just look at the first four lines, what impression does this give you about how the psalm was to be read or recited? Kind of rhythmically, yeah. What do you mean by that? Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you're getting at, right? Responsively, back and forth. And in a large group, celebrating that God's love, or I think really mercy is a better translation of that word, but either one, it endures forever. What do we say with the common table prayer? Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endures forever. Yeah, that's the older translation. I still think it's best. But you got Israel saying, so all of God's people. You've got the house of Aaron saying, so the priests, and those who fear the Lord, again, all God's people. And you get the sense that there's kind of a call and response. Let everybody say, his love endures forever. Let me hear you, house of Aaron. His love endures forever. Let me hear you over there. You know, that's kind of how they would be doing it. And then, though, it switches in verses 5 to 7 to a personal psalm. And usually you have one or the other. So some psalms are written just for one singular individual, others are written for a group. But this one is a mix of group and individual. So that's already kind of different from what we normally see. And so while the group is just celebrating God's love in general, or his mercy to his people, the verses 5 through 7 now talk about how I was hard pressed, but God delivered me. And it's a very, what's the right word? Just a simple image. He was pressed tight, squeezed tight, and then brought into a wide open space. He was distressed, and then he's free. The Lord is with him. He's going to triumph. He will not be afraid. And these are all Easter themes, even though it's not, I wouldn't say at this point, like predicting Easter. But, you know, what's the first thing the Lord says when he comes out of the tomb? Do not be afraid. Jesus looks in triumph on his enemies, and the last enemy, Paul says, is death. And so Jesus triumphs over the tomb. So we're already getting into Easter themes. It seems to be written by David maybe as referring to some of his situations, but at the same time, it is alluding to at least Holy Week and what Jesus experienced, especially towards the end. So we'll keep going. Verses 8 through 14. 8 to 14.
It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humans. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. All the nations surrounded me, but in the name of the Lord I cut them down. They surrounded me on every side, but in the name of the Lord I cut them down. They swarmed all around like bees, but they were consumed as quickly as burning thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them down. I was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation.
Okay, thank you. And so, again, we have this kind of repetition. It sounds like something that would be sung or whatever. It's better to take refuge in the Lord. It's better to take refuge in the Lord. Repeating it like it's a song or something. And then these verses 10 through 14, first think how does that apply? How would that apply to David, who doesn't say it's a Davidic psalm, but you'd assume it would be? And then how would they apply to Jesus there? What he says about being surrounded by like bees and pushed back and about to fall.
Saul and the army trying to capture him or kill him.
Yeah, so David was surrounded by some nations, including his own. Any other thought? Well, and he also fought Philistines, Moabites, many of the surrounding peoples, and so you can kind of apply it there. Any other thoughts on how this would apply to David? Oh, other things about David you notice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had several close calls. I guess you think of him fighting Goliath, him fighting his son Absalom, and then he always succeeded because of the Lord in kind of miraculous ways. He defeated Goliath. He defeated Absalom through the Lord's intervention. So you can see David writing this, but then how does this apply to Jesus and Holy Week? Any phrases here that you think are particularly fitting? 10 through 14.
Well, he was surrounded and about to be stoned a number of times. And he escaped.
Yeah. He was often surrounded. People tried to kill him. And then, of course...
Or something like that, and he escaped, walked right through them.
Yep. So that happened many times. And then on Holy Week, or on Good Friday, I should say, he was surrounded by his own nation. I don't know if it's right to say he was literally surrounded by all nations, but he was bearing the sin of the world, so maybe you could look at it that way. He was certainly surrounded on all sides. And when it says, in the name of the Lord, I cut them down, in the name of the Lord, I cut them down, he didn't really defeat in the same way that David did with an army, but he defeated death and hell and sin. And he certainly has become our salvation. He was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped him. I mean, God answered at just the right time and raised him from the dead. So the general theme of victory and maybe snatching victory from the jaws of defeat really fits well with Good Friday and Easter. Although it's not like it would, there's aspects of the imagery that are not really unfitting, but don't fit great, but they still fit okay. All right, so then 15 through 21. This is kind of where it really gets into Easter and why it's often used on Easter, because here we get the very celebratory language, the joyful language of not just joy, but victory that leads to joy. And that's what we have on Easter. We have victory over death, so now we're happy about it and celebrating. Hello, Julie. Come on in. Good to see you. All right, you're going to read?
Yeah,
Thank you. 15 through 21.
Shouts of joy and victory resound in the tents of the righteous. The Lord's right hand has done mighty things. The Lord's right hand is lifted high. The Lord's right hand has done mighty things. I will not die, but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. The Lord has chastened me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open for me the gates of righteousness. I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord through which the righteous may enter. I will give you thanks, for you answered me. You have become my salvation.
All right, so how does these verses make you think of Christ and what he's done for us? We're in Psalm 118, by the way. we decided to do something different because a lot of people probably thought we didn't have Bible study today. How do you see the Easter joy reflected in these verses? Yeah, Derek. Yeah, exactly. So I will not die but live. Why say that? He did die, but then he didn't stay dead. He rose and he lives. And so yeah, that there. Anything else?
The Lord is chastening me severely.
Yeah, the chastening severely. I mean, that's exactly what happened to Christ. He wasn't chastened for what he did, but for what we did, but it was still a chastening. Notice who deserves the thanks and credit for this great victory?
Open the gates and give thanks to the Lord.
Yeah, so it's the Lord has given this great victory. It's a great victory, unexpected, or at least would seem impossible, but the Lord has saved at the last minute and brought us into salvation. Good. Any other phrases you see there that make us think about Easter? Yeah, the gates of the righteous are interesting. What do you think that refers to? Yeah, it could be, I guess, the eternal life. If you think about Christ, how he rose from the dead and now he is living in kind of a new, he didn't just rise to the same level as before, but to like a new and better kind of life. And so perhaps that you could think of heaven. Now the other aspect of this psalm, as I said before, and we'll see it in the last verse if we won't read it now, but just skim your eyes down to verse 27. Sometimes this is seen as its original context was a Thanksgiving procession in the city of Jerusalem, because it starts out with this kind of chorus singing with the priests and the people, and then at the very end it ends with a procession going up to the horns of the altar and presumably making a thank offering. So it could be here that the gates are the gates to the temple or the gates to the city as well in the original context. But it's hard not to think of Christ re-entering the land of the living and rising.
The temple
Mm-hmm.
wasn't built when David was.
Or tabernacle, yeah, good point. Or it doesn't have to be written by David as well. That's just, it is written anonymously here. Any other, unless it's quoted in the New Testament as being by David. Maybe it is somewhere, but I don't recall. Any other thoughts on this?
Verse 21 is a pretty good example.
Yeah. You answered me, you have become my salvation. So God, the Father did answer Christ, but only after he allowed him to suffer and to die. But now we finally get the victory. Good Friday we focus on the struggle and the suffering, but now we get to the other side. All right, so then 22 and to 24 is really key and gets quoted several times in the New Testament, and this is one of those verses that's harder to make sense of in the original context, but it makes a lot of sense applied to Christ. Anyone else want to take a mic and read, or want to pass it around? Not that you guys aren't doing a good job. Or you can keep going. Go. All right, you're on a roll. Go ahead. 22 to 24 only.
The stone the builders rejected has become the capstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Yeah. Now, you said capstone. Other translations say cornerstone. But either one, it's the main important stone that everything else is built out around. And so the stone, and think about it, the builders rejected a stone. It must have been a pretty good stone if it was a suitable cornerstone. And yet the people in charge of building the building just tossed it out as though it were no good. But then someone, and it must be the Lord, it says in verse 23, but the Lord took that stone that the builders rejected and then used it to build, whether you want to say an arch or a building, he used it as the center, most important point for this new edifice. And it makes a lot of sense with the church. And that's what Jesus quotes this. Peter quotes it in the book of 1 Peter. And maybe there's others, but at least those. And I think, it's in several Gospels, that this applies to him. Who were the builders who rejected Christ? Well, the Pharisees, the leaders of the people, teachers of the law, who condemned him to death. But then God took him and used him to found the church, which is, depending how you want to look at it, the new people of God or the restored people of Israel, however you want to look at that. God has done that. And then verse 24, it's too bad. Sometimes our tradition trumps accuracy in Bible translation, and this is one of those. And you might even be annoyed that I tell you this, because it's very, did you say, this is the day the Lord has made? Is that what yours said? Yeah. The new translation has actually updated it, and it's too bad, because this is the day the Lord has made is a really popular phrase, and it's suitable for every day, because it is true, every day the Lord's made it. And there are other Bible verses that express the same thought, like your mercies are new every morning, basically the same idea. But a better translation is actually, the Lord has done it this very day. Let us rejoice and be glad. So the point isn't so much that God made the day today, so let's be happy because it's another day that God made. What it's saying is, today's the day that God has taken that stone and made it the cornerstone. And we're celebrating that specific event. That's what this verse is actually about. And so that is another reason it applies to Easter. Because this is the day that God took Christ, raised him from the dead, and then founded, even though Pentecost is coming 40 days later, basically sets up the church upon what Christ has done. Any thoughts on that section? Maybe the most specifically applied to Christ. And so this part, I would say, we could look at as a prophecy, one of these statements that doesn't completely make sense until Christ, but then in light of what he's done, it all fits together. But any other thoughts? I guess we'll move along so that we can finish and have like 20 minutes.
In the
worship.
notes of the Bible here, it says, has done it.
Yeah.
The Lord has done it.
Yeah, that's really it. The Lord has done it, or the Lord has made it.
He's made the stone the capstone.
Yep. So that's what it's saying. And this is the day we celebrate that. So then 25 just says, Lord, save us. Lord, grant us success. And this is now, we're going back to the group. Remember, this psalm is you have the group singing, and then you have the individual talking about his situation. And maybe that in itself, that dynamic is kind of fitting for Easter, because we have everybody together celebrating what's happened to one individual. But we're not talking about David or some other saint of the Old Testament. We're talking about Christ and what he's done. And so that's another reason it's been found fitting. But in light of what God's done in Christ, we now ask the Lord to save us and to bless us and give us success. Then I'll just read the rest because I will comment on almost every verse. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord, we bless you. And so this is often seen as if there's a procession going through town, and then the people in the temple are pronouncing blessings as the guy is walking through. And the house of the Lord, that would be the tabernacle, you're right, at this time, unless it's written by a later person than David. The Lord is God, 27, and he has made his light shine on us. With bows in hand, join in the festal procession up to the horns of the altar. So that is, at first glance, it seems like it maybe wouldn't be Easter symbolic language because, the altar is Good Friday. We think of Jesus offering himself up on that day. But the altar is also where you give thanks. And so it probably is with that theme of give thanks to the Lord for he is good. It's a thank offering. In response to what the Lord has done, they would often make a vow or give a thank offering, and that's probably what's being described here. So everybody is going along to thank the Lord for what he's done for the one individual speaking in this psalm. And that kind of fits Easter. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds you of that too. But, it all fits. It's not like they're competing thoughts, but I'm just showing you how it could fit with Easter as well. So then 28, 29, you are my God and I will praise you. You are my God and I will exalt you. Give thanks to the Lord for he is good. His love, or old translation, his mercy, endures forever. So That last verse 29 is found many times throughout the Psalms, all sorts of different Psalms. So it's a good thing to have at table prayer. It is one of the most common phrases in the Bible that we could be using. So that's the Psalm 118, an Easter psalm, and we got people starting to trickle in, so we can probably end soon. But any final thoughts or questions, comments on that psalm? Do we have someone in charge of making coffee? Okay. Any help needed with all the food and stuff? Or you think it's good? It's all good. Great. Well, I'd say we can end there. That way we'll have over 20 minutes. People can trickle in. Try to reserve the back few pews if you can for people who need it. People with kids or people with disabilities. And there probably will be some latecomers, and there'll probably be guests, and we do want to be welcoming to them, even if they're late. We don't want to tell a guest, oh, you're 5 minutes late, so we'd really rather you weren't here. So we'll just try to keep as much room as we can for as long as we can. Thank you.